grateful believer in Jesus. Oh, thank you. My name's Annette. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I'm honored because I was thinking this is the day that he was betrayed by one he loved. He knew who was going to do it, but not everybody knew who was going to do it. John may have, because he told John, the one I dipped the bread in. Anyhow, but this is the day that he was betrayed. And for my testimony, I have been betrayed a lot. I wasn't born in the greatest of circumstances. I always wondered why my parents parented us like they did. So I kind of had to do a little research, and in that research, my mother was broken. She was the black sheep of the family. She was less important than the rest. My father, who was a change of life child, and they had already adopted a son. And so the son that was adopted was the good son, and my dad was the bad son. And so he was rejected by his father, but his mother didn't reject him. And these two broken people got together and got married. And we lived a strange life because each sought fulfillment for their brokenness different ways. My mother sought forgiveness for her brokenness by going to nursing school and getting underneath very wealthy people and nursing for them. She didn't raise us, my mother didn't, my father did. And my father had mental problems. And he started molesting me and my sister since he gave us baths in the old silver bathtubs outside. I lived in the country, so we got the old silver bathtub trough. And that's when molestation began. And my mother rarely came home. We just were not a priority of hers. And so my dad raised us, and he took us places. He always took us places. He wasn't a responsible person, so it didn't matter if we would have enough to get back, but we were going. And he was just always, he had a lot of oddities, I might say. He was discharged from the Navy and the Air Force for mental problems. And anyhow, he would expose us to himself. He would come out of the shower completely naked and expose me and my sister to himself. And I didn't know my sister was being molested. We didn't talk about it. And one day we went to see Mom. And Dad had kind of made me the other parent to my siblings. I was dishwasher, cook, and all that for my brothers and sisters and family. I was elevated almost to be his wife. And we only had 2 bedrooms, and 2 got to sleep in one bedroom and the other had to sleep with Dad. And he molested me and my sister until we were 12 years old. And my sister told, I didn't want her to, because me and Mom had no relationship. She did not like me. And I'm sure my dad manipulated that, you know, by replacing her with me, and, you know, a lot of manipulation, a lot of betrayal, a lot of deceit, you know, and you're a child. You're a child. What do you do with all this information? But I did know one thing, that if my dad left, I wouldn't have anybody love me anymore. He was the only one who loved me. He may not love me in the right way. I think it's called Stockholm Syndrome, when you're, that's what I was diagnosed with anyhow, when you identify with your abuser. And so anyhow, Lane told my sister, and rightfully so. And I could see my dad in one room, and we were in another room. And I remember my dad saying, I love my dad. You know, I kept him around way too long. I should have got rid of him. If I was a healthy person, I would have got rid of him out of my life. But I wasn't a healthy person. And he was in one room, and my mom and me and my sister were in the other room. And I remember my dad saying, whatever they said I did. So we never had to go to court and testify or be examined in any way that a child doesn't want to be examined. And he was sent to, he went to prison. And so we moved to Dallas, and my mother was a pathological liar. She just lied when the truth fit better. You know, that was just her, and her mother did the same thing, my grandmother. But anyhow, we were in Dallas, and I was just nothing but a burden to my mom. It didn't take her long to get rid of me at all. We had moved to Cedar Creek Lake, and I was at the marina, and my friends were saying, I heard you get married today. And I said, nope, I'm not getting married. I don't know what you're talking about. But I knew I was getting married. I knew my mother was marrying me off to my first boyfriend. I knew she made his dad sign. I know she signed for me, and I know that I had a homemade cake with no invitations. And there I was. I got 2 weeks of birth control. And I didn't want to be with him. I didn't know what I wanted. I was a confused child. I was just a child. And I got 2 weeks of birth control. And after 2 weeks, I called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm out of birth control. I need to get more birth control. And she told me, you figure it out. I did. I figured it out. I was pregnant at 14, had a child at 15. And, wow, was I going to be a good parent. You know, I had good mothering skills, you know. And Mother was just so mean to me. And words hurt, and words repeat in your mind. You don't want them to repeat, and tell them not to repeat, but words from significant others, such as your parents, it stays with you. It's hard to, you know, I don't think of it every day, no way, but, you know, a lot of things she said and did were bad things. I don't know what was wrong with my mama, but she didn't want me in her life. So anyhow, I told her, I said, I'm not going to live with this man. I want to come home. And she said, no, you're not coming home. I said, well, you need to find my daddy. It took her 30 minutes to find my daddy. And it was a whole new set of problems. Being 5 months pregnant, sleeping in the living room, and always afraid every night he would come to me. You know, just that anxiety of always being afraid that he would come to me. And, you know, I grew up in, my teenage years were in East Dallas. Anybody know East Dallas? East Dallas is old East Dallas. Columbia turns into Maine. Maine takes you right into downtown. And that's where I grew up, 15 years old, pushing a baby carriage, because that's where my dad lived, in East Dallas. And East Dallas in the 70s was full of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And you know, I went that course. That's the way I went, you know. Partied with my friends, listened to Led Zeppelin, you know, all those things. But I didn't know to get help. I did know that my dad kept coming to me, you know, and I would say, no, I'd just push him away. No, that's not going to happen. I mean, he'd come to me many times. And until the day my father died, my dad would have slept with me. That's why I said I don't know why I kept him around for so long, but I kept him around his lifetime. And then continued on, a couple of marriages, you know, and I married this man that was a three-time Vietnam veteran. He was in Vietnam 65 to 68, which were some of the toughest years in Vietnam. And he would go into blind, uncontrollable rages. And it was not a good thing. But I loved this guy. I just really loved this guy for some reason. He was just, you know, getting away from him was peeling a banana. So I got me and my children into New Beginnings for battered women. And my kids were in filiotherapy, which is play therapy for children. And they were in there just for the abuse that they had witnessed. I was in there to see why I was with this guy that was abusing me. Help me get away. Something's wrong in my head, you know. And so we had probably about 3 months therapy. And we were leaving therapy one day, and the kids' therapist said, whatever you do, don't let them be around Tom. I said, okay. So we left. Well, I'm not going to let that go. Me and my kids were close, you know. I just looked back in the back seat and was saying, hey, what's going on? Why would she say that? You know, what's going on? And boy, they just spilled out. Both my children, talking about how long he had been molesting them, talking about how long that, talking about the things that made them shut up, which was equally as bad. He was a Vietnam veteran. I mean, he could come up with it. And I said, oh my God, you know, and I thank God that I had at least 3 months of therapy, you know, for my own stuff. And anyhow, so they made they call it an outcry. They made the outcry to me. We went straight to the police station, and they talked to the kids, and a report was filed, and at this point he was at the VA. He wasn't with me. He kept trying to come to my apartment, knocking on my apartment door, but he didn't live there. He was at the VA, and oh, I was just. I was so broken. I was so broken. I was doing home health at the time. And when you're in the home and you're a nurse, you write down the things that you're asking questions and their vitals and something important you want to teach them and all that stuff. And then when you go home, you can cross your T's and dot your I's for just the part. Oh, the part. I got a loud voice. The part, that was just about business, and it wasn't about the patient. And so I would turn in my paperwork, and they said 2 people wrote this, not 1, 2. And I said, no, I wrote this, while I was in the home, and I came home and finished up. And they said, no, this is not your writing. It's 2 different people's writing. I said, no, it's my writing. And I couldn't hold down a job. It was just, everything was just upside down. I didn't know what to do. I should have went and left and turned to the Lord, asked Him to help me get through this. But I wasn't a believer at the time. I went right. and I became a drug addict. And I was a bad drug addict. And so not only did my children have to deal with the molestation, they had to deal with Mom, the drug addict. I just didn't know how to function any other way. And so I was a drug addict. I was a drug addict for a while. I should have been dead several times. One suicide attempt. I was almost successful. I was in a coma for 2 weeks and 2 days. And when I got out, my son, my twin that I had put through a hard time, along with my other twin, said, that's not going to be enough, Mom. That's not going to change you. You need to go to some place and get some help. So I went to Care Center Ministries to a women's home. And I stayed there from 2011 until 2013. And the only reason I left is because a part of the program was restoration with your family. But they wouldn't let me see my family. I worked for them. I made them lots of money. I was over their cleaning crew, bid on the jobs, did the jobs, assigned the women to the jobs, responsible for the jobs. And so I finally left. But they did introduce me to Jesus Christ. And they taught me a lot. I had done my testimony there and gone through the steps there through Celebrate Recovery. And Celebrate Recovery has been just a wonderful thing for me. When I finally left Dallas and got out of that, and I came here because my daughter lived here, and I just wanted out of Dallas. And I've been here about 5 years now. And since I've been here, I've been with Lakeview when they were at the auditorium. But, for those songs that Pastor Billy played were just so right on, how His grace, his love for us, how patient He is. And in that one question where it said in one of those songs, it said, maybe we just live under grace on a daily basis, because I never get it right every day. But I love Celebrate Recovery, and I'm especially fond of the inventory, where it talks about who you hurt, who hurt you, what was your part, what was their part, who was affected by it, all those things, and working those steps and having such great support with Miss Lulu and Pastor Billy, and I love the Lord. I love the Lord. I know He saved me. I should have been dead many times over, through ODs, through getting myself into bad situations and having the sense enough to get myself out before I got caught. I wasn't a good person. But I'm just thankful. I'm so thankful for God. I'm so thankful for this church. So thankful for the Holy Spirit that lives inside of me. You notice I didn't read this. I wrote it, rewrote it, and all that. But I knew I'd mess it up. Here's my glasses. I'll be quick about this. There was a couple of things I did want to share. I think if I could title my book about my life, it would be, I didn't know I could say no. Because I went for years, abused, betrayed, all of that stuff. And I didn't know I could say no. And when we went to trial, when you're with the man that did this to my children, they put my daughter up on a tarp, and they had a microscope going inside of her, and it showed that there was her hymen was broken and there was scar tissue. And I'll never forget being in that room and watching my little girl do that. And I've also seen the 39 now, and I've also seen the different ways they've dealt with it. And they both have dealt with it in different ways, and it has affected their lives. That's all I say about that. Well, who's that? Forrest Gump? That's all I got to say about that. But I remember being so lonely. I was always lonely. When I went through that trial, I was by myself. And my ex-husband didn't support me, didn't pay child support, didn't do nothing. And he showed up on the day that they were going to sentence him. And he got 100 years for what he done. He aggravated with my daughter and misdemeanor with my son. I can't remember what they called it at this time, forgive me. On the day that the kid's dad showed up, never there, never support me, never pay child support, none of that. He said, let me take the kids off your hands. Let me give you a break. You need a break. You've been going through this, you need a break. let me take the kids off your hands. He never brought them back. He sued for custody of them. So, you know, forgiveness is what got me through this. The steps, step 4, where you learn to forgive, you have to recognize, and I recognize my own stuff, but when I learn to forgive people that's harmed me, and to forgive myself, because I lived with so much guilt and shame, that's when my life started coming, full circle, and learning about the Lord, and learning how He forgives us, and He knows us, and He knows what we've been through. And I'm grateful for my God. I'm very grateful for my God. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank God very much.